Welcome to the Endure Hunt podcast. Join me as I share my experiences as an emergent hunter, offer advice on how to overcome challenges, and pursue your passion for hunting. This is episode 12, Emergent Hunter's first season. This episode is very special to me because I have a special guest who I'm going to introduce in the podcast. He's one of my best friends. I've known him for a long time. He has kind of been with me on my journey as someone who did not hunt, had no interest in hunting. He's been there alongside me as I grew as a hunter, and now he is going into his first season hunting on his own back in New Jersey, where we're both from. Well, I'm from. He moved there. We'll talk about it in the podcast. But I have him on to discuss everything in his journey. I think it's a really great episode, helpful for anyone who is trying to figure out how to get into hunting on their own without having someone who can help them directly on the ground where they are. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. All right. So the whole point of this podcast, Endure Hunt, is to share my story and those that also join hunting at a later date than childhood. And I have with me one of my best friends, Andrew Coltson. We're both Andrews, so he will forever be known as Dre. And I go by Luco in my circles. So that is, well, I'll be referring to him as for the rest of this podcast, basically, if I even reference you by name. Yeah. But anyway, we've known each other for at least 16 years, I think, at this point. We met in junior high school, maybe. And he did not grow up hunting. He's from Ukraine. I don't even know if hunting's a thing in Ukraine. But
to a small degree.
But this year is going to be his first year doing hunting like by himself, actually with a hunting license and everything. So with that very brief intro, I thought it would be helpful if you could kind of talk about your background, what your exposure was, experience with hunting, and I guess we can just take it from there.
Yeah, cool. First off, thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be on the show. It's cool being, I guess second or third guest. I don't know exactly, but it's awesome. I've been watching the show since the beginning, and since I am an emergent hunter myself, learning a lot going into my first season, just listening to the episodes you put out. So thanks for that, and I'm glad to be here. But a little bit about my journey is honestly, like, you have a lot to do with that because you brought me on that hunt in October 2020 to Utah with you and Peter and another friend. So that was kind of my first real exposure to actually going on a hunt. Like, I know you and Peter had went to Montana and had maybe done some hunts separate from that, but bringing me along was awesome because I'm already an outdoors person. I love, being outdoors, being in the mountains, being in the forest, all that kind of stuff. But kind of being along with the three of you while you're out on a hunt, stalking elk, and, with the sole purpose of, like, we're going out here to hunt, was really eye-opening, and kind of seeing the respect that you have for all the animals and the passion that you put into going out there and spending long days deep in the woods, in high elevation, chasing these animals. And then also while being there with you guys, like, spotting a couple elk was just really a magical moment. It was like, whoa, like, these are some beautiful, beautiful creatures. And, it was my first taste, and I definitely enjoyed it. In addition to that, another big factor of me wanting to hunt is actually watching the Meat Eater show. I think you also may have introduced me to that, but once I found that, I basically watched like every episode when it was on Netflix. So that was awesome, just seeing the wide variety of what it means to be a hunter, from varmint to small birds and game and waterfowl, things like that, and then to bigger animals like black bear and moose and caribou and stuff. So it's a very wide range of hunting that they show on there, and I right off the bat know, like, I'm definitely not going to do all of those, but it definitely got me interested enough to be like, oh, I can do a couple of these. Like, some of these are interesting to me. So that combined with with a little push from you, I decided to dig through the drudge of New Jersey regulations to find out how to get this done. So that's kind of brings me to where I am now, where this 23-24 hunting season is going to be my first whitetail deer season in New Jersey.
It's going to be really exciting. So I want to clarify a point. So if you guys listened to episode 11, which I called, I think it was Mountain Fit in Texas, I refer to that Utah hunt. as an example of people not being prepared, and I just want to clarify that Dre is not the guy I'm talking about. The one who is unnamed is the person who was not prepared for that hunt. Dre is
Yeah.
actually the guy who came with me to
Right,
get
right,
the
right.
pack that was left on the side of the mountain, and then we had to go back to the camp and attempt
Yeah.
to get there before it got too dark.
Thankfully, it wasn't too far away, and like walking from the camp to pick up the pack, we didn't have our own packs, which was nice.
It helped a lot.
Yeah. But no, I definitely like that episode was very good. All of them were, but yeah, that definitely is very poignant. Like you have to be fit to go out there because you might have the best gear in the world, but if you've never put it to the test, you don't know.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same thing with shooting, right? Like I didn't talk about that in that episode, but you could have a $4,000 gun, but if you don't know how to shoot, you're not going to do any good. And if you can't stay calm under pressure or maintain your breath, it doesn't really matter.
Yep.
All right, so you went with us on that 2020 hunt. We were out there for 4 days,
Yep.
and well, I think I was out there for 5 days, but you guys showed up a day after us, and we technically were unsuccessful, but you saw at least two elk, I think. You were with me when I had my encounter when we broke over 10,000 feet, which was
Yep.
one of the
Yep.
things I wanted to do. So you got to see a whole range of experiences in that time.
Yeah.
And I guess the question becomes, why are you getting it? Why are you interested now? What is the time that's doing it, especially on your own in New Jersey? I've been there. I know how difficult it is to dissect all of the language and the rules and regs. So why now, and why on your own?
Yeah. So honestly, like I said, you got me into it, and then it's something that I decided, like, eventually made a decision that yeah, this is something I actually do want to pursue. It's kind of part of, a culture of like doing hard things. Oftentimes, they're very rewarding to do hard things. This being one of them. So, once I got my own place, and driving to and from work every day, like I pass a lot of municipal plots of land owned by the township that have like hunting signs on them. So, where I live, there's a lot of woods around here, and thankfully the township actually does preserve, lots of tracts of land for hunting. So that kind of did work in my advantage where I didn't have to go out and find public land like you did in Jersey the first time. So that kind of was working my factor. But yeah, once I got this place and kind of got settled, I decided, yeah, this is something that I want to do. So that's kind of why I decided. I didn't really want to push it off and wait anymore. Just wanted to jump in and go do it. Yeah.
I mean, I'm supportive. Peter and I have been pushing you to do it ever since
Yeah.
Utah.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
outside of the influence of people like Peter and me and the show Meat Eater, what are some of the things that you're hoping to get out of hunting from the experience? Obviously, there's meat and food on the table, but
Right.
what is drawing you to hunting as an individual?
Yeah. It's honestly a big way to get closer to nature, to closer to where your food comes from. And there's kind of an aspect of control in there as well. And just like preparation, having this control of where your food comes from, knowing, where the meat came from, knowing what it ate, what landscape it came from. That kind of really makes me happy because, as we all know, the factory farming system is far from ideal and full of lots of problems. So that's not really a system that I want to be a part of if I don't have to. So if I'm gonna, have that opinion of I don't want to really support the factory farming system, then the way you don't do that is to like buy local from local farmers and that kind of stuff, and then one step beyond that is to go get the meat yourself. So that's kind of very interesting to me and something that I definitely wanted to pursue. So that's a big reason, and then the other aspect of just getting closer to nature, getting back into nature, that is a huge aspect for me. I feel like it, in the drudgery of everyday life and of steel and concrete and all that kind of stuff, we tend to lose our connection to the ground, to the earth, to the air, to the trees. And this is a way to kind of get back into that. When you're out there, whether it's in a stand or whether you're spotting and stalking, you are out in nature for hours and hours at a time, often with no cell signal, often with no plumbing and running water. So It really does force you to disconnect, to forget about the emails, forget about work, forget about everything else, and just listen to the wind, listen to the trees, listen to the sounds in the woods, and the animals running around, and all that kind of stuff, and really focus on what do you see. Every little movement might matter. It might be a deer or it might be a squirrel. You don't know, but you have to be open to seeing that kind of stuff. So I think just being out there is healthy for everyone, mentally, physically, and just kind of like emotionally as well. It really does put you in a positive mindset, regardless if you're successful or not. I think just being out there and going through the motions of, focusing, of meditation almost, it really is helpful.
I couldn't agree more, man. It connecting to nature and being able to disconnect from everything else is like super impactful. When you'll probably remember from Utah, when you're out there, I know in certain spots there was a little bit of a cell signal, but you're kind of forced to be in the present. And,
Yeah.
I know you like tea, drinking your tea, or when I drink my coffee, or when you eat a meal and you're
Right.
sitting down at the end of the day or whatever, you're fully present in the moment.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by nature. It's so calming and peaceful. And it gives you more perspective, I feel like. And
Yeah.
it's something I think we all need from time to time.
Yeah, and this is not true in this particular case because I will be hunting alone this time. But also it is like a sense of friendship of everyone who's at camp. You mentioned in previous episodes, there's some times where the only time you see Peter the entire year is during some of the hunts you do. He's a bit closer to me, so sometimes I'll make the drive over to his house now. But I definitely do appreciate that, spending the time out there because, you really do bond with the people that you go out to camp with, go out to hunt with, go out to hunt with. You really do develop a bond and a camaraderie that way, and memories that you'll have forever, like I do from Utah. So that definitely is another aspect of it for sure.
Yeah, you shared experiences, particularly through hardship, build camaraderie. I mean, and that's why the bond from people in the military. I have a few active listeners that are veterans that hunt, and we tend to comment back and forth on different posts. So in that vein,
Yeah.
that shared brotherhood is unlike anything else, and you really can't get it outside of being in a position where you have to just do difficult, hard things with people, and that also goes a very long way.
Yeah,
All right,
absolutely.
so let's talk about you getting started. So it's 2023. You started the process earlier this year, so figure it's been 2.5 years because we were
Right.
October 2020. So what was the process like for you to actually, get your hunter's education, get your hunter's license, all of the way through getting ready for the season? So what has that journey been like for you, and what's that process look like for others who might go through a similar situation?
Yeah, so I definitely stretched it out over a long period of time for sure. Like I had some gear going into Utah. I ordered a backpack that took months and months to come in, and other gear for outdoor stuff because I do like hiking and camping, that kind of stuff. So I did have some stuff, but in terms of the hunting specific stuff, the Hunter's Ed, I took your recommendation that you use the Texas Hunter's Ed online course, so I did that. Got my Hunter's Ed certificate there. And then basically,
Real quick, I want to say, because I haven't talked about that on the podcast, but that is a game changer for people who are comfortable. I'm not going to recommend it to people that are not comfortable going out in the woods or doing things on your own. But if you feel like you're competent with different weapons types, or if you feel confident in yourself out in the field, the way hunter's education works is it's reciprocal with every state. The state of Texas has an online hunter's education. You can do it totally online. There's no field day. You get your hunter's ed, and it's valid in every single state. They have to accept it. So even though Dre lives in New Jersey, he took the Texas hunter's ed, got his hunter's education, and was able to do everything to get his hunter's license. And that gets around the field day requirement. It's easier because you can do it on your own schedule, and that works for anybody. So if you're listening to this and you're overwhelmed about having to schedule a field day or something, or you just feel like you don't need to, that is an option for you.
Yeah, and I was a bit skeptical of that. Like, I know you had done it, but then like going through it myself, I'm like, really? Because like every regulation I'm reading is saying the field day. But when I show up at the sporting goods store, as long as you have your New Jersey FID or firearms license and a valid hunter's ed certificate, they will grant you the permit. But yeah, like based off what you would say, like don't use this as like a workaround. Kind of supplement your own skills. Like take everything you do in the hunter's ed seriously, because it really is important information. A lot of times it can get kind of repetitive or dull, but the information is valid. The information is important. There's a lot of important safety stuff on there. Yep. There's a lot of, stuff about ethical shots, ethical shot placement, hunter's ethics in general, just best practices to be a good person out in the woods, not leave a trail, not leave any trash, kind of respect the land, all that kind of stuff. So do take the training seriously. Don't just use this as, I can skip a field day. But if you take it seriously, it's a good way to go about it.
Yeah. So when I did it, I really didn't have much of a choice because I was deployed. But I was very comfortable with firearms. By the time I did that, I had been shooting in the military for 6 years or so. I'm very, very comfortable with myself with a firearm. At the time, I knew I was doing rifle. I wasn't sure I was going to do archery. And I did the online, but like you mentioned, I paid a lot of attention to the ethics and the game care too. When they talk about taking care of animals in the field, those were things, especially because I wasn't sure if I was going to be by myself at times.
Right.
I paid a lot of attention to that, took it very seriously. So it's not an excuse for you to gaff off, but it's an opportunity for people who are comfortable and confident with themselves and are good with learning on their own e-learning type platform. So
yeah.
Anyway, so you do that. What's next?
So yeah, I already had my FID from before, which in New Jersey you do have to have that to go hunt. So make sure you get your firearms ID card. Once you get the hunter's ed, you go over to the any kind of sporting goods store, and then you can buy your permits kind of over the counter. So I got the all sportsman, which includes like hunting, fishing, all that kind of in one package, and it's good for a calendar year, which is weird since the hunting season goes across the calendar year. So I guess like January 1st, you have to get another one is my guess. But once again, the regulations can be kind of confusing. So I think to be safe, I'm going to get another one on January 1st to cover that part of the season. But once you have that, then basically the process for me in my particular township is that there's a set of different tracts of land that they make available for hunting. Some of it is for bow only. Some of it is for bow and firearm. And I guess, I wasn't really keen on getting all the gear and the training and all that to learn how to do bow hunting and in the timeline that I wanted to get out there and hunt. With enough time, I probably could learn it. I just didn't really have that interest in the beginning to do that. I have shot shotgun with you and Peter a couple times and wasn't that great at it, just using, shooting clays and,
very different, by the way.
Yeah. Very different. But I also that experience kind of narrowed down what weapon I want to use. So I kind of eliminated bow, eliminated shotgun, and all I'm left with is muzzleloader. And, when you think of muzzleloader, you think it's like some, Revolutionary War flintlock thing. It's really not. It's basically a modern one-shot rifle that you just have to load up every time you shoot one shot. So after doing some research on some muzzleloaders out there, I kind of decided, this is what I'm going to do. I just have to be very good and very selective with my shots and shot placement and all that. And in theory, all you should need is one shot to get it done. So I eventually landed on doing muzzleloader. So once I came to that conclusion, it was basically time to pick out which tract of land that I wanted to pick. And this is all happening in February, March, as I'm trying to, get my permit with the township in. So I decide on that. I pick out my muzzleloader. I get that ordered. All that's good. It comes in. It's nice. I love that thing. But
It is
then
nice. This is my first time holding a
yeah,
muzzleloader, which I'm still shocked you went the muzzleloader route. I did the exact opposite. I was like, I don't want to touch that thing. I'm going to
yeah.
learn how to shoot a bow. Like we both approached New Jersey completely differently.
Yeah. It's funny that my first ever firearm that I own is a muzzleloader. But
Which by Texas standards isn't technically a firearm. I can order that online and have it shipped to my house without going through an FFL.
I think
So
Peter said the same thing. So yeah, no,
yeah, it's true.
I had to have the full thing, background check, all that stuff as if it is a firearm. But yeah. So yeah, the next part is basically picking which tract of land I want, and they had that available on my township's website. So I looked at all the tracts of land. There's like, I don't know, 15, 20. 4 of them allow muzzleloader hunting, so I was kind of limited from the beginning. So I basically just went out in late in the winter to check out all the different locations, and went to all of them, walked the land, walked around. They had the maps available online. So
How far
brought
are
that with
these
me.
from you? Because
They're-
like this is one thing I miss from New Jersey.
Yeah,
The closest walk-in public land for me is an hour and 15 minutes away.
yeah. So these are all literally within the borders of my township. The closest one, which actually is my least favorite, is like 6-minute drive from my house. But that's the smallest and also my least favorite of the muzzleloader land. But my favorite one is about the one I actually ended up getting the permit for is about like 11-minute drive from my house, and it's super nice. I like that one a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I basically in one day I walked all the different tracts of land, checked them out. I like picked out my order of like 1, 2, 3, 4 of which ones I liked the most. And then other than that, it was time to wait until either municipal website released the date of when you can go into the township and like submit your application. So until then, it was just a waiting game, really.
Yeah. So let's talk about I can't get over the muzzleloader thing, but we'll just move on from that. I mean, I'm not upset because I'm
You
learning
can come back
from
to
you.
it later. You can come back,
Well,
ask them some questions at the end.
No, I'm learning from you. So there are like earlier this year and last year, Taylor and I were talking about getting muzzleloaders because one, it extends the deer season here in Texas, at least for his. He's in. I can't remember if he's considered a north or a south unit. I'd have to look at where his land is.
Right.
But they have a late muzzleloader season, which adds 2 weeks on. But it also opens up the door for other hunts in western states like Colorado and Arizona, and I think Utah might have some muzzleloader hunts as well.
Yeah.
So it's something I've thought about for a while, but I don't know anyone who shoots or hunts with muzzleloaders. So you are the guinea pig for me in this case, and I'm going to learn from you and see how that experience goes.
Wonderful. I'm glad to be that guy because I
You went
already
with a 50
like it.
cal,
So.
right?
Yes.
You went 50 cal? Smart.
Yep.
That is what I would do also. Okay,
Yeah.
so at this point, you've gotten the hunter's ed, you have a hunting license, you've got the muzzle loader. How do you actually get the process or get the permit? And then New Jersey I don't think New Jersey itself requires insurance. Is that a township specific thing for you? How does that work? So you're getting a permit and then you have to actually, we should probably take a step back and explain. So there are different levels of public land that you can hunt in basically any state. New Jersey has some state land that you can hunt on. There is county land. Some of that you don't need extra permits for. Some of it you do. So I used to hunt on a state park when I lived in New Jersey, and you had to go to I guess it was a park ranger's office, and you basically had to apply for a permit. Now,
Right.
there are municipal tracts of land that can belong to a township, and some of those you can hunt too, but they may require additional permitting. So New Jersey adds a lot of bureaucracy, but this is something to keep in mind if you're going to hunt a state for the first time. You should probably make sure that the place you're trying to hunt, that public land, is walk-in access, because there could be different regulations depending on how the state handles it. So I know for you had to get special permits and insurance. So what's the deal with that?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a journey just to everything you said to even like learn all that myself was a journey. But basically, my township website has like a whole page about the deer management program. So I read everything they had posted for like the last year, and read through all that and was kind of familiar with what I needed, but unsure of kind of like how to get the insurance and all that. I'm like, I don't know. What do I Google? Like hunting insurance or what? Like, but this is where I use some advice from one of your earlier episodes. I don't know, like 2 or 3 or something. You told me about the New Jersey hunting Facebook group. So I went on there and I believe I just like searched in past post history, like hunting insurance. And of course I got a couple hits, so I didn't even have to post my own question. There is a group in New Jersey called the New Jersey State Sportsman's Club Federation, I believe it's called.
Let's see. You said New Jersey State Federation of Sportsmen's Clubs.
Yeah, New Jersey State Federation of Sportsmen's Clubs. So basically, that is kind of what it sounds like. It's a collection of local clubs that are kind of under this one umbrella. And because they have all these local clubs together, they offer insurance, hunting insurance to all their members. So I think it's like $1 million policy with like a $2 million umbrella. And I found this. I'm like, cool. I think this is it. I was like honestly nervous. I'm like, a $1 million policy with a $2 million umbrella. Like, this is going to be stupid expensive. Like, is this going to be prohibitive? Like, can I afford it? I go on the website and I check it out, and it's like $40 for a membership, and the insurance is included. I'm like, oh, that's not bad. That's actually
annual membership.
Annual, yeah.
Nice.
I'm like, okay, that's pretty affordable, but like, is this actually what I need? So I did the smart thing, and actually, one day I left work early and I went to my township and I spoke to the clerk. I'm like, hey, I know in the next month or something, it's probably coming up to like submit the application. I don't have hunting insurance yet. Like, is this website that I found, like, is this the correct thing that would this basically count as my insurance if I got this? And she's like, yes, this is actually what everyone uses. So that's the correct one. I'm like, oh, good. Perfect. And it's actually really good that I stopped by on that day to talk to her, because I got some insider news that I wouldn't have known otherwise. And that is that next week when the application process started, basically everyone shows up like super early. They wake up, they open up at 8 a.m., but like people show up early and wait in line like it's Best Buy, which I used to work at Best Buy and I've never done that. But this is my first time ever like waiting in line for something, at the butt crack of dawn. I think I got there at like 5:15 in the morning or something. And
why are they getting there that early? So what's the allure behind that?
I think it's basically first come, first serve. There's a limited amount of permits per tract of land for hunting. For example, like the one that I got, there are 10 permits they issue. 10 for the entire property for the entire season. There's 10 for the one that I ended up getting. Some other ones have 12 permits. One of the smaller ones has like 4 permits. One of the larger ones has 14. So these aren't like huge numbers. So I didn't know how many active hunters are in the area. Even though it's from my township, like neighboring townships, you can like residents from other townships can apply to hunt in this township. So I really had no idea of the history of how many people are previous hunters, new hunters, like how many people there are going to be. So I just kind of wanted my odds to be as high as they can of getting one of those 10 permits. So I show up, I get my whole application, I get everything I need, I bring all my documents, everything that's in there. I have my like 1, 2, and 3 choices for the land that I want. And then I show up at like 5:15 or something. And as I'm like pulling up on the road, I'm like, oh, good, I don't see anyone lined up yet. And then as I pull into the parking lot, like park my car, there's like a bunch of pickup trucks in the parking lot. And like as I pull in, everyone starts kind of like walking over. So I'm like, oh, crap. I think I ended up being like standing like 8th or 9th in line or something. So I was like a little bit nervous, but like I'm like, there's no way everyone's going to pick the same exact land. There's no way everyone's doing muzzleloader as well. So basically I waited from, like I said, 5:15 until like 8:30 is when I finally went in. And wow. Yeah. So that was my, Best Buy experience, waiting outside.
Okay. So once you got in, you just basically put in an application and then you have to wait? How do you actually find out when and if you get your permit?
Sure. So basically, you walk in. They have like a conference room, and they have the township clerk and someone else. I guess whoever runs the the deer management program there. And you give them your application. You tell them which land you want. And then thankfully, I was one of the first ones there. I told them which land I wanted, and they basically said, "Yep, you got it." Like they verbally told me like immediately, like, "Yes, you got it. You're going to be issued this land. Your spot is safe." I'm like, "Sweet." That's awesome. I walked out of there super happy. And it was actually like the process of talking to them was super quick. I was only in there for like 5 minutes, but I had all my correct documents. So like I dotted my I's, crossed my T's, all that was good. And yeah, basically they took the application in and said, we'll email you in a couple months. You're going to have to go to a township wide or like a township hunters I don't know if it's considered hunter's education, or it's basically a meeting that we all have to attend that's mandatory and required before they will like physically give you the piece of paper that is your permit that you need to take with you when you go hunting. So that's coming up in the end of this month, actually, end of July. But basically they told me verbally, like, yeah, you got your spot, you're confirmed. And I was like, that is awesome. Sweet. I'm happy. I got it. I got my exact spot. I think I might have been the first one there. So like it did pay off me getting there early. I definitely was one of the youngest ones there for sure. It was a bit of an old man's crowd, but it was cool to see who the other hunters in the community are, to kind of just talk with some people while I was in line and hear of everyone chatting there. So that was cool. But yeah, I basically knew that day walking out that I got my permit.
That's awesome. Did you have any like decent conversations with any of the guys that were in line? I know that there's not a lot of younger people. Well, technically there are a bunch of people our age getting into hunting, but that's nationwide. I'm sure in individual towns it's not that noticeable. So
Right.
did you get into any decent conversations? Were they welcoming, or was it just kind of standard New Jersey, not talking to each other?
It was a little bit of both. There were a couple guys that were, maybe 5 or 10 years older than me, and they were talking a lot. So I had some conversations with them. And these guys I could tell, were like avid hunters. They do turkey in the spring, they do deer in the fall. I think they mentioned they have some land in South Carolina they go to every year and go hunting there. And they're the guys that go to hunt as many days a year as they can. So that was cool to know. So hopefully if I see them around a couple more times, we might develop a friendship. But yeah, it was cool chatting with them. And then, seeing some of the older guys that they've been going to the same piece of land for a long time over and over. So like they found what works for them. They found what spot they like. It didn't seem like there was very much protectionism, because like everyone there was already a hunter. So I didn't really get to see them interact with like non-hunters, and whether maybe they might be a little bit more protective in that kind of a case. But standing in line chatting with a bunch of other hunters, they were super welcoming and open. So yeah, no issues there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm always curious because I feel like it's hit or miss. Sometimes you get the guys that don't want you to even know the tract of land that they're hunting on, and some guys, they don't care at all and they'll just talk to you about whatever. I don't know. Well, you'll remember this when I say it, but I dug this up. You sent a picture of the breakdown of New Jersey's harvest by method because I thought this was just interesting.
Yeah,
So, as a muzzleloader hunter, only 10% of the harvest is done by muzzleloaders. So, you had a pretty decent chance of getting that permit, because if there are 10 guys there, only one of them was hunting muzzleloader, and it was you.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you've got about 42% with a crossbow, which is an interesting one because in New Jersey you can use the crossbow during the regular archery season, which is not the case in some states. Then behind the crossbow, 25% shotgun, 22 compound bow, and then the very bottom, less than 1%, uses the traditional bow.
Yeah,
Which that's probably true just about everywhere because the traditional bow is very difficult. So now that you've gone through this process by yourself, reading the regulations, diving into the research, doing everything, what advice do you have for someone else who might be in your shoes that is trying to tackle this on their own without someone on the ground with them that can help them?
go to law school and learn legalese. I don't know. No, in all honesty, you're gonna have to do a lot of dry reading of regulations that are gonna at times be hard to understand. So do your best to understand and take in that information, because it will be confusing at times. Don't be afraid to ask questions, whether that's friends. Like, I can't tell you how many times I bothered him and Peter. We have a group chat going, and I asked them lots of questions about not only gear and stuff, but like procedure, because procedure is never fun, but it's necessary to get out there. So I definitely asked them a lot of questions about, hey, how does this work? How does this work? How does this work? And they were very helpful. And then also go back to those local Facebook groups. And if you have a question, I guarantee you someone has already asked it. So use the search function, go back there and search for your question, because someone will have asked it. And if you don't find that, then go ahead, ask it yourself. And people on there are usually pretty nice about that kind of stuff. They might not give you their spot, but they will answer some question about the process of signing up and all that kind of stuff. So definitely learn how to read a lot of dry stuff and learn to understand it, and kind of get used to the procedure of those things. Other than that, in terms of, preparation and going through the process, is just being comfortable outdoors. So that's something that I like to think comes naturally to people who are inclined to hunt. I already liked the outdoors before this process. That wasn't a problem for me, but go out and walk the land and see, if you're looking for a place to hunt and you see a couple different options, go out and check them out. Park your car at the trailhead and walk in and see what it looks like. See if there's terrain elements that you like, and, if it vibes for you. I went to all 4 different areas that allow muzzleloader hunting in my township, and I ended up choosing the 3rd one that I went to, but it was my favorite one because it had a mix of open fields and then woods right in the middle. So kind of split the land in half, with like left half is woods, right half's all open land, and then there's a stream going right through it, so there's a water source. The open land does kind of go up to a hill, so there's a little bit of terrain, and it kind of had a lot of elements that I liked, and decided like this is kind of the spot that I want, because it has this intersection of woods, fields, water. It has all that going for it. Meanwhile, like one of the other spots I went to, which is actually the closest one to my house, is like boring and uninteresting, and just like dense woods with a lot of deadfall, and it's just like a flat piece of land with woods and deadfall. And I'm like, this wouldn't be fun to recover a deer in. This wouldn't be fun for me to even like spend 10 minutes, let alone a couple hours out here. So, go out there and walk the land to see what you like. And then just ask lots of questions. That I think that's the biggest thing. Don't be embarrassed that something, there might be some stupid questions. Just about the muzzleloading thing in general. Peter doesn't have a muzzleloader, and Luco doesn't have a muzzleloader, so that part was kind of on me myself to figure out. So, the Reddit community was great there on the black powder page and the muzzleloading page. YouTube videos were great to help me with that, in terms of picking what kind of powder and what kind of bullets, and even just picking out what kind of firearm I wanted in the first place. So there's a lot of information out there. You just have to be willing to go out and access it and find it and learn it. So those are the pieces of advice I would give.
Awesome. Yeah, any worthwhile pursuit is going to take effort on behalf of the person who wants to do it. A lot of the stuff that Dre was talking about in terms of like the Facebook groups and some of the things to consider, I talk about all of that and more in episode 3 of the podcast. I will link that in the show notes. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll throw a little card up there so you can just click straight to it, and it'll be in the description as well. But that's another good resource for someone who's just considering and getting started. Okay, cool. So at this point, you've gotten everything. You have all of your paperwork done. You have your permit. Essentially, you're just waiting for you're waiting to do that meeting, right? And then you're waiting for the season to start.
Right.
So when does the season start for you? When is the general season for firearm?
So I actually have that here because I know that you and I went back and forth about it. And this is where, a lot of the drudgery of reading all the notes is important. So
Yep.
New Jersey gets complicated in that we split ourselves into they go up to zone 63, but not all there's missing zones in the middle. But let's say as a round number, we have around 50 zones, and those zones are split under 8 different levels of regulation. So it's complicated. But under if I follow the chart where I live for my area, my zone, all that stuff, my set of regulations, my season, the earliest it can start for either gender is November 27th. And then if I want antlerless only, there's a 6-day firearm period in December from the 4th to the 9th. And then there's just open chunks of season throughout December. And then January 1st all the way to February 10th is also completely open for permit muzzleloader. So it actually is a decent chunk of time from, mid-November to January. And then
That is
February.
a long season, especially for firearm.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a great season. That is one thing. New Jersey, I think the bow season, I can't remember. For some reason, I feel like it started in August and went all the way through February 15th, I think.
Yeah. The 23-24 season, it goes till February 10th.
Okay.
Yeah.
But very gracious seasons. It's great, but that's because New Jersey has such a high deer density, and on the muzzleloader side of things, is it as gracious as the bow, where you could basically take a doe a day depending on which zone you're in?
So it's my exact regulation set is unlimited antlerless and 1 antlered. 2 deer may be taken at a time. So
Okay.
in one day you can take 2 animals, but once you've had 1 buck, then the rest are basically unlimited amount of antlerless deer.
Man, yeah, that's crazy. Hey, I mean, I live there. I know exactly how many deer there are. They're everywhere.
Yep.
If you're driving around at night, you're going to see a deer.
There's one guy I remember on the Facebook group who was posting late in the season. He's like, "This is my 9th deer. This is my 10th deer. This is my," and he's that guy who will feed his neighborhood and feed his family and friends, and just after the first or second deer, your fridge is full at that point. He's just feeding everyone else.
Yeah, well, there's good programs too. Like when
Yeah.
we had to do, I shouldn't say had to. My friend had tags that he needed to fill as part of the Texas Managed Deer Lands Permit Program. I'm screwing up the acronym, but he wanted to kill a certain number of deer, and we had room in our freezer for 2 more. But that weekend, we killed 5 deer in one weekend between Kristen and me. And the rest got donated to Hunters for the Hungry. And there's great programs like that where you can donate the meat and it'll go to people who actually need it. So New Jersey needs to
has that
reduce,
as well, for sure.
Yeah, New Jersey needs to reduce the population of deer, but it's not wanton waste. If you can get deer to people who actually need the meat. So there's a lot of great things out there. All right, now you're preparing for this season. I guess, how are you feeling? What are you thinking? How are you feeling going into your first season, man?
Yeah, honestly, I think it'll be real for me once I do that meeting and have the permit in my hand. But no, I'm super excited, super pumped. It's really hot right now, so I'm definitely not going out there to check out the land until a little bit later. But once I have that permit, then honestly, the 2 things I really got to crack down are just go shoot more, get 0 to get really comfortable, really accurate with the rifle, and then go and explore the land. And once it gets colder, once it gets closer to the season, get comfortable being out there in the cold, get comfortable reading the sign, looking for sign, do that leading up to when it is that I'm actually going to go hunt, and then honestly go back and do some more research on butchering and field dressing the animal and all that kind of stuff. Thankfully, I do have my wife who is actually excited for that part of it. She is a science teacher and loves anatomy and that kind of stuff. So she is excited to help me with the butchering, which is great. I also have some neighbors that are excited about that too. So who knows, they might help as well. But yeah, so basically just kind of get my chops better on the range, and then explore the land. So learn the land to see where the deer like to congregate, where they like to hide, where they like to feed, all that kind of stuff, and that will all help me when I decide to go out there and do the hunt.
Yeah. How far do you want to be comfortable shooting, I guess, for both practice and then in the field? What distance do you think you'd like to be comfortable with?
Yeah, so currently I've shot out to 50, and I have had some pretty groups at 50. I last time I was at the range, I didn't have time or a chance to go out to 100, so that's my next step basically, is to get out to 100, get comfortable at 100, get really good groups to the point where I'm confident that I can make an ethical shot, an ethical kill. So once I'm happy with that, I think for this first hunt in particular, I am going to limit myself to that 100, 100 yards, just because it's my first time, and if that's all I could do at the range, that's basically where my skill level is gonna max out at the current time, is going to be at about 100, and I feel like that's achievable. I feel like that's a decent goal for my first time being out there, and with the plot of land that I've been to, I think that definitely should be doable. So first time, I think I'm gonna limit myself to 100 yards.
Okay. Now, what is the consideration for the style of hunting you're going to do? Are you going to do tree stands, sit on the ground? What's your plan? And can you? I don't think. I don't know what you'll do, but can you bait on this property? And if so, are you considering how that might affect you from the other hunters that are in the area?
Yeah, so actually, that's something that I haven't. The baiting question, I think the answer is no.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure
probably a good
we're
thing.
not allowed. Yeah. But for me, something that I really honestly hadn't thought much about, but need to, is that, there are 9 other permits for this particular plot of land. So potentially can be up to 9 other hunters out there at the same time as me. And this chunk of land is, one of the bigger ones. I don't think the map tells me how many acres it is, but if I had to estimate, I would easily say it's like 150, 130, something like that. So there is, decent amount of land there for those, 10 hunters total. But I don't know. I think I'm gonna my thought process is to go to one of the corners of the of where the open land is, where it's kind of like the highest point, and set up there. I don't know if I want to get a tree stand or if I want to basically like hunt off my backpack. I think once I'm out there in the winter and I kind of see where the deer tend to be, I'll make that decision. But I think that's what I'm looking at as how I want to go about it.
Okay. Yeah, I have gone back and forth personally many times about tree stand versus on the ground. Going out west kind of ruins sitting in a tree stand for you. It's so hard for me to want to sit in a tree stand anymore because I just love moving around and being mobile. But there are benefits, especially on plots of land where it's 150 acres or so, where you have your spot, you sit down, get good wind, and just let the animals come to you. There's something to be said for that.
Yeah. I'm a very patient person in general. I think you know that.
Yes, you are.
So I have no problem, picking a spot, hanging out there for 2-3 hours or longer, and see what comes to me. So I have no problem with that at all.
Yeah, I think your patience will still get tested. I mean, you can't hunt the rut during the general rifle season or muzzleloader season, whatever.
Right.
But man, I remember doing all day sits with my archery, like my compound bow in New Jersey, and you're literally sitting from I don't know, 7 in the morning or something until 7 o'clock at night. It's just that is a mental grind for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a half hour before sunset to a half hour after, or half hour before sunrise to half hour after sunset. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like once it hits noon and like they're all bedded down, you could probably just go get some food and come back in a couple hours because that you're not going to see
A lot of
anything.
people do
But
that. During the rut, it's
yeah,
different. People say that during the rut, they'll move around, but you'll be post rut at that point. You might
yeah,
get there's a second rut that happens for the does that don't get bred the first time around, but it's a
hmm
lot less. But yeah, I mean, that's a common method. Even out west, people will do the morning, sleep during the midday, and then get back
hmm
after it in the afternoon. So while we're still on preparation, what are you
hmm
doing, or what are your considerations for that mental fortitude and your physical aptitude? So what considerations do you have, if any, and what are you doing to make sure you're in physical and mental shape to be out there and effective when the season comes around?
Right, right. Physically, honestly, I probably could get a bit better. I stay physically fit enough in terms of I go on daily walks around my community, just around my neighborhood. So I'm like walking and I'm outside every day. That's just something that I do, and we have good neighbors here. We always hang out together and just take laps. So that I am doing that. And then I think once it gets closer to November, December, then the weather at that point becomes a factor. So I think being outside and doing those walks outside, even when it's cold, even when it's freezing or whatever it is, that I think that will go a long way towards preparing you for the weather on the hunt. Although you do tend to be a little bit warmer while you're moving, and you
Hmm.
might just be stationary for a long time out there. So having proper layers and gear is always important. But then also, you've mentioned this in plenty of episodes. It's just having that mental fortitude to stick with it, whether you're being successful, whether you're being unsuccessful, especially when you're being unsuccessful, is to just get out there again the next day, go out again the next day. You mentioned in your, Arizona elk hunt, it was like day 5 out of 7 or something,
Yeah.
where you finally saw your first elk, and then, eventually ended up getting it. So, I have no illusions that hour 1 of day 1, I'm going to get an animal. But
Hey, you might get lucky, man. It
who
happens.
knows?
It happens.
Who knows? I feel like you'll be a little bit pissed at me if I do. You're like, I sat in a tree stand for how many hours, for how
Oh
many
man,
weeks.
I set for months, dude. I started my first season. Granted, it was archery. My first season, I hunted the entire season. So
hmm
if it started in August, figure, let's just say like August 20th, because I don't remember. I
Right.
didn't get my deer. Well, I don't know if you can even see it, but this one, I didn't get him until November 15th.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of trial and error, and also my
Yeah.
things getting stolen, which doesn't help. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, there was absolutely a mental grind going into
Yeah.
that for sure.
I think a lot of it is just honestly setting my expectations, and like I'm going out there to hunt. I'm going out there to get a deer to feed myself and my neighborhood and my family and all that. But I'm also learning. It's also my first time doing this. Actually going out to hunt and not joining someone. Like you guys. So my expectations are that I will be out there. I'll probably see some deer. Maybe I'll get an opportunity. Hopefully it's a good one. But like I'm not having any illusions that this is going to be easy. That it's going to be quick. It's going to be instantaneous. I plan and expect it to take a long time, to take potentially multiple weekends or multiple times out there in the field, in the woods, to be successful. I do think ultimately I will be, just because the season goes for such a long time, and I feel like I will keep going until I am successful. But yeah, I fully expect it to take some time and take dedication and fortitude to get there.
Yeah. I mean, you'll also be able to ask us questions. So there's benefit in that, because if you're
Right.
getting skunked or you're not sure about what's going on or how to adapt, you've got us around to ask questions too.
Right.
But I think those are very healthy expectations.
Yeah.
The odds of you getting a deer, I feel like, are also a little bit better because you do have that extra length because of the muzzle
Mm-hmm.
loader. So, I mean, I think it'll be a great season. I think you have the right mindset going into it.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things, oh, actually, before that, another thing to consider, and this is just general advice for people. Late season is not a bad time to hunt because during the rut, animals are erratic, they're all over the place. But late season, all they care about is food and sleep. So they're a little bit more patternable. You can figure out what those patterns are and then try and ambush them. Best
Yeah.
way to do it, especially if you can't use any bait or other ways of drawing animals in. Focusing on those patterns is ideal, and you'll be in a prime season to do that. I imagine all 9 or 10, I can't remember, of the permit holders for muzzleloader will be
Mm-hmm.
out there that first day, especially if
Yeah.
it's on a weekend, and they will fizzle out. And the more that you can be persistent, if you don't have success that first weekend or whenever it is, the
Right.
longer that you can get your butt in the stand or on the ground, whatever you're doing, the higher your odds go. I mean, the more you're in the woods, the better chance. You can't shoot them from the couch, as the saying goes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure.
So, what have you taken? I don't believe that you have, I don't know better words for this, but I don't believe you've killed anything before. So do you have you given much thought to the emotions that might come and how you might feel? Have you thought about that when given you are successful, how that might affect you?
Oh man, I have thought about it, and honestly, like you can't really predict your emotions, but I anticipate there being tears of happiness probably. Just this is something that I've watched you guys do for a while, something that I've gotten into now, like that I really want to do. So, I do think that that obviously there'll be that rush. Honestly, getting the first like deer in the scope is probably going to be like nerve-wracking experience and
Shaking like
start shit exactly. So hopefully get a couple of those out of the way before I ever get a shot out. But
yeah.
I definitely think it will be an emotional experience, for sure. But it'll be like a good emotional experience. That animal will have given its life to feed me, to feed my family, and then whatever's remaining of the carcass that kind of goes back into the earth and all the animals out there. So, it's basically we've all been spectators in the circle of life, and now I'm crossing that line into being a participant. So it'll I feel like it'll be a similar emotion to the first time that like I climbed a high peak. My wife and I, we climbed to the peak of the tallest mountain in Ukraine, and when we got up there, it was just like an overwhelming rush of emotion. Not only because that's my home country, but it was just like it was a hard goal that we set for ourselves, and then we went out there and we did it, and it was just really awesome to accomplish it. So we had that rush of emotion. I feel like it'll be similar to that, where it's a goal you've had for a long time, and you put a lot of work into it, and then you finally get it. So that's kind of what I imagine it'll be like. So yeah.
Yeah, especially if you see it drop right in front of you, which is the
Yeah.
ideal situation. I know when I shot my buck, it ran off, and I immediately started panicking and doubting
Yeah.
myself. But with my elk last year, it moved a foot and fell. And that
Yeah.
was the most emotional reaction I've ever had when I
Mm-hmm.
was from a hunting experience. It was
Yeah.
exactly the way you described it, just like overwhelming emotions. It was all joy. But yeah, I cried.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is what it is. Um, and I hope that is your experience. I mean, at some
Yeah.
point, everyone has to blood trail and find an animal.
Mm-hmm.
But if it drops the first one, especially, that would be a huge boost to your confidence out
Oh
there.
yeah. And like the last kind of thing on that topic is from watching a lot of Meat Eater. I actually was watching another 2 episodes yesterday. But I know Giannis has this kind of tradition of whenever he kills an animal, he always puts some grass or some grain or something in its mouth, kind of like give it its last meal on its way out. And then this recent episode I watched was when Giannis actually went to Latvia, and one of the things they do there is they take like a branch of like a spruce tree or branch of a tree, and they cover up the opening wound. So I'm like, that's another like there's a lot of traditions out there, I guess, when it comes to hunting. So I do feel like that's like a cool tradition to have, or a way of showing respect to the animal as well.
So not a respect to the animal tradition, but I think you remember what my tradition is. And if you are successful, you're going to have to do my tradition, and I'll do it with you. So my
Oh boy,
tradition for those who are listening is you take a shot of Jägermeister. That is the tradition when you have a successful
the
hunt.
master hunter, yeah.
I don't remember when I started that, but it's a thing now. And
Hey, some nice Jägermeister to warm you up on a cold December or January day. I'm not gonna complain.
yeah. So one thing that we didn't really talk too much about that I'm thinking about now that because you talked about using the animal and all the meat and everything, and what you don't use it go back to the earth. Um, you'll use everything because you love food. I mean, you're big
Hmm.
into food. So is there any like not to get excited and put the cart before the horse, but what plans do you have in terms of like if you're successful, how would you butcher it? Would you go to a butcher shop or are you guys going to do everything yourself? What plans do you think you would have?
Yeah. So this first time for sure, I think we're gonna butcher ourselves because that's this is a way. You mentioned how Kristen joins you and hunts a lot, and that's something you guys do together. I definitely don't think my wife will do that because that's not her vibe. But the butchering of the animal, I think that's something where we can kind of connect together in this, in the pursuit of hunting. So I definitely do think that we will butcher it ourselves at least the first time to see what that's like, for sure. So yeah, that's something I think we definitely will do. And no, I'm very excited to cook with venison. I've never cooked with venison before, so I think that'll be really cool. And I know I like liver, whether it's like beef liver or chicken liver. So I think I'm probably gonna try deer liver. I know some people have a thing about it because like the liver is like a filtering organ or whatever, but
It's
I
also the most
I
nutrient dense organ. So
I like it. So well, I guess I'll find out what deer liver tastes like.
you got to do the heart too. I'm
Yeah,
telling
yeah,
you,
of course.
do the heart, marinate it, make some tacos. Very good.
Yeah, yeah,
Underrated.
heart, liver, and then obviously meat. I don't think there's any other organs that I'm gonna eat, but
Yeah, just
I'll do those for sure.
barring you don't blow up the heart, because the last two animals I shot, the heart didn't exist anymore, so there was nothing
Yeah,
there for you
I
to
mean,
eat.
listen, it's a 50 caliber, so who knows what organs are gonna be remaining.
Yeah, and those aren't. I imagine those are not monolithic copper bullets, so they'll probably do some damage.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so um, I guess what are some of the concerns and like worries that you have going into this first season by yourself?
Yeah, my biggest worry is a non-fatal shot. I do not want to wound the animal. I do not want to hit it in its gut or hit it in the shoulder and not in the vitals. So I think once it cools down a little bit here, I'll have some more time to go to the range and just put rounds down range and get super comfortable. You were in the Marines for years before you ever went hunting, so you got that proficiency with the firearm that I don't have yet. I think that is something that I got to spend a lot more time getting reps on. Is getting good groups at 100 yards, so I'm comfortable, so that when that moment does come and you are stressed, that like you always say, you don't rise to the level of your ability, you fall to the level of your training. So I hope that the floor of my training is a really, really high floor, a really good level where I can take a good ethical shot.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my primary concerns. And it is every day still. I've been doing this since 2018. And every time I'm out there and I'm putting the scope or my sight on an animal, I always want to make sure that I'm going to take a good shot. And if I don't feel like I'm going to take a good shot, I'm not going to take the shot. I would
Yeah,
rather it walk away than wound it. And sometimes that's really difficult.
yeah,
And but like you said, with practice and repetition, you'll be in a really good space. And practice, practice, practice. The thing that I talked about in episode 11, the fitness podcast, and it translates even though it's not what I was talking about. I
Mm-hmm.
always I always want my training to be harder than what it's going to be like in real life. So if you can
Yep. Yep.
find ways to add stress to your training, whether that's doing some jumping jacks before you take your shot or whatever,
Yeah.
there are plenty of ways you can add stress to it so that it can sort of mimic what you're trying to do and help you get better acclimated to the
Yeah.
actual situation you might find yourself in.
And something that I've kind of picked up on that is that when a lot of people go to the range, they, put their rifle in a sled or on a rest or whatever and go shooting, and cool, I can get out to 100 yards. Perfect. Let me go home. But then when you're hunting, you might be prone, you might be standing, you might be seated, you might be off your backpack. Have you practiced that? Have you done that? So that's something that I definitely want to, like, once I'm comfortable just like with my groups and my shots, then I'm gonna lay down at the range. It's gonna be probably the one guy there doing that, but like I'm gonna lay down and get a couple of prone shots. I might try some standing shots. So like I feel like that's something that I have to experiment with, and I'm thankfully found some videos online. I forget which hunter it was, but that's something he recommended. It's like everyone can get good groups, MOA groups from the bench, but can you
Yep.
do it in the style you're going to be doing it on your hunt? So that's something that I definitely want to try as well.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing, and I'm thankful for doing that too. Because if you remember, when I did my Arizona hunt, I had to take the shot off of my backpack, and I had practiced that before, so I was
Yeah.
okay. Like I was ready to do that. I wasn't concerned. But if you'd
Yep.
never practiced that before, you might not take that shot.
Mm-hmm.
So with I should have brought this up sooner, but I wanted to ask, with the gracious bag limits that New Jersey has, are you targeting a buck, a doe? Do you care if you shoot a buck? Is that the end of the season for you? Like, assuming you have an awesome season and
Right.
you are just master hunter over here, what are you looking to do?
Yeah, so honestly, like I haven't really thought about whether I want a buck or a doe or whether I'll shoot the first thing that comes out there until like a couple minutes in this podcast. I'm like, I wonder if he's gonna ask if I want a buck or a doe. But here we are. I think it'll be basically like once I'm out there for a couple of days, I'll see what's coming by. Like if I'm seeing a bunch of bucks or something, then like cool, I'll hope and wait and hope that I get a good shot on a buck. But if I'm out there, it's, day 3, 4, 5 or something, and I just get a really good chance and it's a doe, this particular time around, I'm not going to be particular. I'm going to, shoot what comes to me. Like you and Peter like to say, if it's brown, it's down. I think this time I'm not going to be as picky just because I think having success is a good way to kind of get the ball rolling. And then from there, you can, once you have that feeling of success, like I'm sure it's addicting and you want to do it over and over.
Yep.
But at that point, I think I can be more selective for future seasons and whatnot. But this particular season, if I get a buck, that's great. If not, I'm not going to like hold out and, not take anything because I don't find the buck that I want. So yeah.
No, I think that's a great mindset. I still sometimes say if it's brown, it's down. I wholeheartedly agree, especially early, that you need to find some level of success because
Mm-hmm.
hunting's hard. I mean, think about the amount of effort that you've put in, and you haven't even started actually hunting yet. The amount of
Right,
work
right.
and time and effort you've had to put in, and you're only going to have to put in more. And there's a group of people that are like, oh, you should hold out for a mature buck and you should only take bucks because that's better for the deer population. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes, on paper, you are correct, sir. However, if you want a sustainable hunter population,
Yeah.
you need to lower your standards and let people figure it out and learn. And then as they grow, if they want to change the standard, then that's great. If they don't and they're happy taking does or spikes, it's okay. As long as the biologists are able to set the appropriate limits and tags and quotas for that unit in that region, however they determine, let them do it as long as it's legal.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares? Let them be the way they want to be. That's how I feel anyway. So I think that's
Yeah.
appropriate and a good
Absolutely,
mindset to
absolutely.
have.
Yeah, and trust me, with the amount of does that I see out here just in my backyard or around my neighborhood, there's a lot. So there's a lot of them. So
when people start finding out that you hunt, the amount of annoying people who are going to be like, there's deer in my backyard. Trust me, all of your friends and neighbors will be like, well, they're in my backyard. I could walk up to them and throw a rock. And it's like, yeah, you probably could, because you can't hunt them there and they know they're safe.
Yeah. If I could hunt out of my backyard, I could honestly like hunt in my pajamas if that was legal.
Yeah, you probably could with the Muzzy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great. But man, I am so happy that you are finally doing this. I don't know how long. I don't think we had to fight you that hard to do Utah with us, even though you didn't have a tag. You were just there for the experience. But
I'm pretty sure I just wanted to tag along on that
yeah,
one.
you did, I think. But we've definitely been pushing you in this direction for a while. It's been a long journey as a bystander. So I'm just super pumped for you to get this first season. I can't wait to see how the season goes, how it progresses. And when the season is over, I'd love to have you back on and we can revisit everything we talked about and see what you learned along the way, whether or not you had success, and what you're looking forward to for the next season.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. This journey would basically not exist without you and to a certain degree, Peter, as well, just because of how much help you've given me, how much advice you've given me, how much you kind of pushed me, to get to where I am. So thank you. Thank Peter. But yeah, I'll definitely be happy to recap, hopefully in a couple months time and see where we're at. Also, thanks for the show. Just like listening to the show itself is super helpful. Whether things that I know and it reinforces them or whether there's new things I learn. Thanks for putting it out there because I'm literally your target audience, an adult onset hunter and, and all the like. So yeah, thanks for putting out the show. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you being on here. Appreciate your friendship, and I'm looking forward to hearing how the season goes. And I'm glad you're getting something out of the podcast because I do try and sit down and think, what is the value that I expect my target audience to get from this? Like, when I was in that person's shoes, what did I want to hear? What did I need to hear? And I try to frame the episodes in that respect. So I'm glad that you're getting something out of them.
Yeah. I guess the best way to say it is thanks for making mistakes for me because now I don't have to.
Hey, no, that is fair. I think my start line is essentially something to that effect. Is like I share my experiences to help you enjoy yours, essentially, is what I talk about. So I am happy to make plenty of mistakes, and I'm going to learn from your muzzleloader mistakes. So when I have a muzzleloader, I'll be in a better position. So
there you go.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you again, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. Have a good one.
All right. That wraps up this episode of the Endure Hunt podcast. I thought it was really special for me. I'm looking forward to connecting with Dre again at the end of the season. We will talk to him sometime in spring of 2024, discuss the ups and downs, the outcome of how his season went. I'm definitely looking forward to catching up with him. I'll be supporting him through his journey through his first season, but it'll be great to be able to sit down and kind of go over everything at the end of the season. Please leave a comment on the YouTube video. Let me know what you thought of this episode. If you're watching it on YouTube, drop a comment on Instagram or send me a DM and let me know what your thoughts were. If you are an emergent hunter, adult onset hunter, or someone who is getting started on your journey, let me know if this episode helped you in any way. And if there's anything that you feel like we missed that should have been covered, please also drop a comment, send me a DM on that. I'd be happy to have Dre back on and we can revisit any specific subjects that y'all think we missed. Thank you as always for listening to this episode, and I'll see you next time.